After a special win up in Oklahoma last weekend, the Wildcats are home for the first time this season.
We'll get you ready for the home opener, ACU against East Central University, and we'll look back at a win that only Rod Serling could love. Not the Twilight Zone, it's the Chris Thomsen Show next. Welcome to week 3 of the Chris Thomsen Show. Grant Boone along with senior broadcast major Brandon Tripp and the head coach of the ACU Wildcats, Chris Thomsen. The Cats coming off a 43-13 victory last Saturday night in Tahlequah, Oklahoma to run their record to 2-0. Coach, it was almost like a Twilight Zone kind of a game. I expected Rod Serling to walk out at any moment. You had 3 block punts, another punt return for a touchdown. Are games like that harder to evaluate in terms of the game film the next day?
Maybe a little bit, because those type of plays affect your offense. For example, we only got 50 plays on offense, and you know, the offensive numbers weren't really outstanding because there was 3 or 4 possessions taken away there by special teams. But that's a great thing. I mean, the guy that was cheering the loudest was Coach Collins over there when we blocked those punts, and so it makes it a little bit different, a little bit harder to evaluate. But it was a fun night.
Coach, your special teams dominated last week. What does it add to the team to be able to have special teams that can come in and take over a game like that?
Well, you always talk about all 3 phases, and if you can somehow find a way to make some plays in that special teams area like we did the first week with the kickoff return game, and then the punt return and punt pressure game last week, if you can get some points or at least get some field position in those areas, that's one of the main areas we evaluate is average starting field position for each team, and special teams has such a huge effect on that.
Yeah, starting in the end zone is a pretty good way to begin a drive, isn't it? All right, so ACU now 2-0 in the season, 1-0 in the Lone Star Conference, heading into Game 3, the season home opener tonight against East Central. We'll have a look back when we return on the Chris Thomsen Show at last week's 43-13 victory, and Coach will break it down with his analysis. You're watching the Chris Thomsen Show.
Where did you find these educational toys?
I found them at Abilene Educational Supply.
Well, I need to go there.
Well, we could go this afternoon.
Abilene Educational Supply is Abilene and the surrounding counties' premier place for all of your educational needs. For more than 45 years, AES has been local teachers' best kept secret. From school supplies and Christian literature to teachers' guides and gifts, AES has you covered. What will you find at Abilene Educational Supply?
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. A big 43-13 victory last week for ACU up in Tahlequah, Oklahoma over Northeastern State. With a look at the highlights, here's Brandon.
The number 4 ranked Wildcats were in Tahlequah, Oklahoma for an LSC crossover showdown with the Riverhawks from Northeastern State. And on the first drive for ACU, a big 3rd down, it's Mitchell Gale looking for Edmund Gates, who can't hang on to the pass, forcing the 4th down. Morgan Lineberry added the field goal to put the Wildcats up 3-0. On the ensuing drive, Northeastern's first offensive play of the game, it's a fumble by receiver Darren Allis for the Riverhawks. Marvin Jones scoops up the football, and ACU is set up with great field position. On that drive, Mitchell Gale finds Taylor Gabriel with a diving catch, but the offense stalled again, and they would have to settle for another field goal. Wildcats up 6-0. On the next Northeastern possession, they did manage to get some offensive plays in, but the Wildcats clamped down, forcing a punt in what began a series of punt problems for the Riverhawks. Kendrick Johnson, after blowing the catch, picks it up and turns it up, going 80 yards for the score. On the punt return, Wildcats up 13-0. Next punt for Northeastern, no better. Chris Jones in there for the block on punter Cody Lentz. It's Nate Bailey who grabs it out of the air and takes it to the house. Jones blocked 2 punts on the night, earning him LSC South Special Teams Player of the Week honors. At the end of the first half, Wildcats up 26-6. The Riverhawks looking for the miracle on the Hail Mary, and Kenny Davis finds wideout Kendall McKellen in the end zone. Prayer answer for the Riverhawks, who head into the half down just 26-13. The second half was all Wildcats. Chris Jones blocks the Northeastern punt, for the second time in the game, and it's Nate Bailey dragging it down to the Riverhawks' 12-yard line, setting up this connection from Mitchell Gale to Emery Dudensing. Dudensing got his second touchdown of the season and his second touchdown of his career to put the Wildcats up big 33-13. Towards the end of the third quarter, the Northeastern punt team out again. They got the punt away this time, and it was a beauty rolling down inside the ACU 10. After a Gale pass to tight end Ben Gibbs, the referees come out for the measurement, which ends up just short. Just run the ball and get the first down, right? Wrong. Daryl Cantu Harkless in for Dale Richardson, and he blows by the Riverhawks defense for an 83-yard score to put the game way out of reach. ACU goes on to win by the final 43-13. The touchdown by Cantu Harkless was the longest since Bernard Scott had a 90-yard touchdown run against Chadron State in the 2007 NCAA playoffs.
Well, Coach, we talked about it earlier. It was a weird game all in all. No scoreboard up there. They had a lightning storm come in. It blew out the circuits. And then your special teams unit blew out their punt team circuits. 3 block punts, another punt return for a touchdown. And really, that's the second game, isn't it, that the special teams has really led the way for your team?
Yeah, the first week the kickoff return game gave us great field position, and then this week punt pressure and punt return. I mean, it's the same unit, but you got a little different approach. Sometimes you can either go after punts or you can be a little more conservative and try to set up a return. But Coach Walker runs our special teams. He came in middle of last week and said, I think there's some things that we can do to block some punts, and he showed me, and we became a little bit more of a pressure team than we normally are. And what we found out is Chris Jones has really got a knack for that. I mean, you can set up all the scheme you want, but you got to have some players that have a knack for what they're doing, just like offense or defense. And he stepped up and made some big plays and showed that he's a guy you got to deal with in terms of finding out where he is and making sure you got a body on him.
Well, we got to talk about some new players, some players we really hadn't spoken much of in the first week. Chris Jones, who earned Lone Star Conference South Division Special Teams Player of the Week for those 2 punt blocks. Nate Bailey had a great game. Caleb Withrow, and then Thor Warner as well. Yeah,
Thor Warner and Harkless and Chris Jones, they're all part of that group we recruited last year that redshirted. So you really hadn't heard a lot about those guys. They're all first-year players on the field. So it's good to see those guys make plays. And then Nate Bailey's a junior college transfer. He's been a big part of our special teams. And Withrow's another part of that class. He's a redshirt freshman as well. So those guys are giving us some production.
Yeah, Bailey scooped the one that seemed to hang in the air forever and ran it in 20 yards, and then recovered another one in the second half that set up your first offensive touchdown of the night. It was difficult, I think, to try to get a handle, at least as I was broadcasting the game, of how the offense even is doing. I mean, you had a couple of nice long drives, but they resulted in field goal attempts. But the last time your team had really a meaningful offensive possession, you went from 8:04 in the first quarter down to about 10 minutes in the second quarter. Only once in there did you even have the ball, and that was when you were backed up on your own 1. And really, your playbook isn't open wide at that point, is it?
Yeah, and the thing that is a little bit tough is last week. The only negative really was in the red zone. We had some breakdowns that really we inflicted upon ourselves. The other team's going to cause you problems, but when you kind of do some things to yourself, and that's what led to the 2 field goals. We had a protection breakdown. We didn't execute real well on a fly sweep, and so you get those kind of things, you end up kicking field goals, and eventually that'll cost you, kind of like it did against Tarleton last year.
Mitchell Gale currently leads the Lone Star Conference in passing efficiency. He's among the national leaders in that category. It really just talks about how few interceptions you throw and how high your completion percentage is. You were concerned even after his 24 for 30, 3-touchdown performance against Washburn in Week 1 about his decision-making. What did you see in terms of that in Game 2?
Yeah, well, efficiency is something that really that's the one thing Coach Collins, besides turnovers, talks to him about. Billy Malone, his senior year, his goal was to be the most efficient passer in the nation, which he was. He was number 1. And then, Mitchell did the first game was about 60% on decision-making, and then Game 2 was about 82, 83% just on decision-making, not necessarily completion percentage, but just where to go with the ball and what to do with the football. And so he showed dramatic improvement from Week 1 to Week 2. If he can continue to do that, he should be one of the most efficient guys out there.
Coach, we have to mention Edmund Clyde Gates, the senior, who in that game Saturday night up in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, caught his 100th career catch What has he meant to your program, and how have you seen him emerge in the last few years?
Well, just you know, here's a guy who didn't play high school football. I mean, the only football he's played is here at Abilene Christian. So to have 100 catches is really pretty remarkable. But he's got a lot of talent, a lot of God-given talent, speed. He's catching the ball well, and really just seeing his work ethic go to another level this year. His preparation is through the roof right now. He's working really hard in practice, and he's starting to see that show up on the field on Saturday.
Is he a guy who, like his cousin Bernard, could be playing on Sundays?
He's got a lot of interest, you know, from teams right now, and you know, they evaluate him. He's a little hard to evaluate because he didn't play high school football, doesn't have a lot of high school background, so they watch him. They're very intrigued because he's every bit as fast as Johnny Knox. I mean, he's got that speed that you can't coach, that they really covet. He's just got to continue to refine his game and you know, go through the process of having a great senior year, and then hopefully get to go to some all-star games and combine and do all that.
Finally, a word about your defense, Coach. Kind of a mixed bag. You held them, if my math is right, to 25 yards on 22 second-half plays, and yet the first half ended with just a head-scratcher, among other things. You give up a Hail Mary at the end of the half, and you gave up a touchdown pass before that as well.
Yeah, the Hail Mary we didn't defend very well. That's something we work on in practice, and just didn't execute all that well at the time. But hopefully we get in that situation again. We've learned some things I think can make us better there, and that's really about all they got. You know, at that point, defense really locked down in the second half. Did a tremendous job. Looked like the defense of '09 there, you know, and really provided us a spark.
All right, a big 43-13 victory for ACU last Saturday night in Tahlequah. When we come back, Brandon Tripp will have this week's edition of Washington's Post as we catch up with ACU linebacker Kevin Washington, and we'll see a familiar face back on the ACU sidelines joining Chris Thomsen's coaching staff. You're watching The Chris Thomsen Show.
Preparing for the next week's opponent can be a difficult thing. Sure, there's film and coaches' meetings, but nothing can substitute for real players to practice against. In this week's Washington's Post, Kevin takes a look at the players that help prepare the team for the next week, the scout team.
Hey, what's up? It's Kevin Washington. We just got done with practice on Wednesday. It's hot. I'm tired, but I'm not as tired as the guys I'm about to talk to you about. We got done. We have about 100 guys on the team, but only about 60 of them travel. The ones that work the hardest are about the 40 that you guys don't really know about, don't hear about. Those are the guys on a scout team.
All right, so tell people, if there's something you had to tell everybody about the scout team, what would be the one thing you would tell them?
The hardest job on the team. You got to play as the defense, the offense, as the opponent of the team we're playing this week.
So you don't get to do the same thing every week. You got to basically change what you're doing every week, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, because I play receiver. Sometimes I play quarterback, running back, no matter what. Just trying to help the team out.
That sounds pretty hard. So what's the hardest thing about scout team if you had to pick one thing?
The hardest thing is playing receiver because you don't get a chance to catch the ball there. But it's still cool, though.
That'll make it pretty good. So it sounds like you guys have to learn a lot, have to do a lot all the time. What makes you want to do it, or why do you keep doing it?
I do it because usually I be with the offense and I really don't do anything. So I just went over there and try to help myself out, get better. I also help the D out.
This is Ben Gibbs, tight end, does a great job for us. You guys know him. Catches touchdowns, does all that good stuff. Great blocking. But somebody who works just as hard as him that you guys don't know, Stephen Porter. He got Scout Team Player of the Week last week for the offense, meaning he was playing on the defense. Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Porter. I'm a sophomore from El Paso, Texas. I play cornerback. I got redshirt last year. I'm a freshman this year, and I'm on the Scout Team. My job basically is to give the offense the best look that I can and do whatever they ask me to and cover them own receivers.
All right, so what's the one hardest thing about playing on the Scout Team?
The hardest thing about playing on the Scout Team is probably getting used to run the other team's defense and playing it the exact way the coaches see it on film.
I got you, okay. So why do you still do it, though? It sounds like a pretty hard job.
Well, I do it because, it's what the team asks of me, and I'm all about I'm a team player first and me last, so I try my best to do the best for the team. So I go out there and compete hard against #1 receivers.
Hey, what's up? Y'all just got finished talking to our 3 scout team players of the week. We had some co-offensive guys, and then we had a defensive guy too. The thing is, we started that this year because those guys definitely don't get enough credit, because without them, none of this would be possible. If we don't have a scout team, we wouldn't have nothing to do on the offense or on the defense during the game. And I can tell you that from a personal standpoint, because I did scout teams for 4 years straight while I was up at Notre Dame before I got to ACU. So I can tell you that's a real hard thing to do, and those guys have a real hard job because sometimes they can't go full out. Coaches want to get certain looks, so they can't do all the things they're coached to do, but they have to do what they're told to do, which is even harder. So I guarantee you those guys are probably some of the hardest working guys we got on the field. And that kind of boils down to what we do on an everyday basis. I mean, we have a choice. Every day we go out there, we have a choice. You can either get mad about the fact that you're not where you want to be, or you can take the fact that you're where you are and make the best out of it. And that's what our scout team players do all the time, and that's why ACU is such a great place to be, because we have guys that are willing to sacrifice for the great of the team. And I love those guys, and I know we wouldn't be able to do anything without them. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Now let's go on up for a look at the rest of the ACU sports landscape with Austin and Kristen in this week's JMC Network Sportscast.
Welcome to the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm Austin Gwynn.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed, here with your weekly look into ACU sports.
The women's soccer team continued its perfect season with a 5-0 win against St. Mary's in San Antonio this weekend. The shutout means that through 3 games this season, the Wildcats have yet to allow a goal. Up-and-coming freshman Andrea Carpenter scored her 3rd and 4th goals of the year to lead the Wildcats in scoring. Courtney Wilson, J.C. Ferreira, and Roxy Marsh also put in goals in the rout. Wilson's goal came in the 7th minute off a penalty kick, and the Cats never looked back as Elliot London and Ariel Moncure combined in goal for the shutout. The Wildcats take the field again Thursday against Dallas Baptist in Dallas.
The men's cross-country team had a successful weekend, winning the team title at the Central Missouri Mule Run. The individual's title went to none other than Wildcat senior Amos Sang, who ran his 4-mile course in 20 minutes 9 seconds. Cleophas Tanui followed 26 seconds behind Sang for runner-up. The men and women compete at the Oklahoma State Cowboy Jamboree in Stillwater, Oklahoma, 2 weeks from now.
Volleyball capped off a stellar weekend for ACU by winning all 4 of their matches in Austin. Wins against Northwest Missouri State, Dallas Baptist, Missouri Southern, and host school St. Edwards pushed the Cats' record to 6-2. Kaylin Allen and E.J. Moranu made the all-tournament team, and Allen's 39 kills, 41 digs, and .304 hitting percentage were enough to win her the tournament MVP award. Moranu did her part, coming up with 149 assists in the tourney, as well as 51 digs. The Wildcats will ride a 5-game win streak into conference play Wednesday when they faced Angelo State on the road.
For the JMC Network, I'm Kristen Goodspeed.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. May the sports be with you.
After being out of coaching for several years, former ACU head coach Jack Kaiser decided it was time for a return to the field. Ryan Cantrell sat down with the coach in this week's On the Grid.
I started coaching in 1971. I was a graduate assistant at the University of Texas, and then I coached high school football for 8 years. And then I got out of coaching for a while, and I got back in at the University of Texas again as a volunteer coach for Coach Fred Akers in 1985, and then in 1986 I went to Texas Tech with David McWilliams as the head coach, and the next year we came back to Texas and stayed 5 years there, and I coached defensive line. And in 1993 I came to Abilene Christian University as the defensive coordinator. Bob Schrader was our head coach, and I was the defensive coordinator for 3 years, and then Bob and I traded spots, and I became the head coach and he became the defensive coordinator, and I did that for 4 years. And then I got out of coaching again in 1999, and I've been out ever since. I missed coaching after being out for 10 years, and I called Coach Thomsen and asked him if he would consider hiring an old coach who would work really cheap, and he said he would, so I came back about 2 weeks ago. I think the appeal for any coach is the young people that he gets to work with and the coaching staff that he gets to work with. Every coach likes a player that likes to play, and we have a lot of those guys, and I've really enjoyed that and getting to know some of them.
Thanks, Ryan. When we come back, we'll have scores from last week around the LSC, and we'll preview tonight's home opener against East Central. Stay with us.
This month we're learning about zoo animals, so I went with the theme Animals of the Grassland.
That's a great theme. Where'd you get all the stuff to go with it?
I found it at Abilene Educational Supply.
Abilene Educational Supply is Abilene and the surrounding counties' premier place for all of your educational needs. For more than 45 years, AES has been local teachers' best kept secret. From school supplies and Christian literature to teachers' guides and gifts, AES has you covered. What will you find at Abilene Educational Supply?
Back on the Chris Thomsen Show, take a look at some of the other scores from around the Lone Star Conference from Week 2. And Coach, you see Angelo State and Midwestern, a couple of teams that were really good all last year, off to good starts at 2-0.
Yeah, Midwestern, a lot of people are replaced on offense, but they've come out and scored a lot of points in their first couple of games. And then Angelo State, with all those people back, has really hit their stride early. And both those teams look to be very good.
Yeah, Texas A&M Kingsville, you see there after that season-opening victory over Northwest Missouri State up in Maryville in the first week of the season, comes back home to open its home schedule with a 20-7 victory over the East Central Tigers. Well, those Tigers come to Abilene tonight, 6 o'clock kickoff. And, Coach, these are the games I know that make coaches nervous because you don't want to come off as disingenuous. Clearly, this is a team that's struggling. They've lost 15 consecutive games. They were 0-11 last year. But I know that you look on film and you see some really talented players, and maybe as a unit and as a team they're not getting it done in terms of W's yet, but you've seen some really good players in orange and black, haven't you?
Yeah, we heard all through the spring and summer about some of the guys that they've added to their team, and then getting a chance to watch them against Kingsville. You could really see those guys and the impact that they're having. Both tackles are on offense are Division I football players. One of them was a Nebraska signee. And then on the defensive side, they've got a couple of defensive ends that could play for anybody in the South, and their interior guys are tough. And their secondary's young, but they had 4 interceptions against Kingsville. I mean, they for all practical purposes could have won the game against Kingsville easily at the end. They just had a few things that didn't go their way. So, you know, all the losing streak is basically last year's team, in my opinion. Yeah. That's really not indicative of what this team is. And I expect a really tough game on Saturday, and I expect them to win a lot of games as they go throughout the year.
One of those defensive ends that you mentioned played in purple a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Armani Bryant was with us as a freshman and ended up leaving and going to Cisco Junior College and then transferred to East Central this year. And he was a guy that routinely wore us out in practice on the scout team. He's a really good football player. So we know what he can do, and they've got another guy on the other side that's very similar to him. It's about 6'5" and 260. So it's going to be a test for our offensive line.
Coach, against Northeastern last week, your defense held their 2 All-SC North receivers to just 5 catches, a little over 60 yards. You have another All-LSC North receiver coming in this week with Zach Pattinson. What do you guys have to do this week to be able to get the same results you did last week?
Well, just the same as last week. I mean, the main thing is put pressure on the passer. If he's got time to stand back there and throw, they're gonna make throws on you if you do that. So we got to pressure with our front 7. Then our secondary's got to continue to tighten down. They did a better job last week than they did week 1 against Washburn. And if we do those things, I think we'll be all right.
Home opener tonight. I know you've had a couple of long road trips. How nice will it be to sleep in your own bed and be able to play in front of the home fans for the first time this year?
It'll be great. We're looking forward to getting out to Shotwell. It's supposed to be a great weather night, and a lot of great players on the field, and really excited about that game. It'll be great to be back home. The bus was kind of getting old, so I know you guys fly, but we're riding that bus, and we're glad to be off that for a while.
Yeah, it was tough. You have to go through the motions of getting upgraded to first class.
Yeah,
it can be a real hassle.
That's tough.
Coach, just want to make a mention here. The kickoff is at 6 o'clock. There is a tailgate party at 4:30. Lots of food and fun for the kids as well. And one final note, Bears-Cowboys at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington on Sunday. Tomorrow, you'll have a chance to see a couple of your former players, Danielle Manning and Johnny Knox, coming back to Texas to show what they've been able to prove to the NFL in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough deal because I'm a Cowboys fan, #1 all the way. I mean, that's my only team, but then you got a couple of former Wildcats playing, and so we'll have to divide our loyalty a little bit on Sunday and cheer for both.
Well, it should be a lot of fun, and we'll have a video recap of Johnny Knox and Danielle Manning playing the Cowboys tomorrow on next week's edition of the Chris Thomsen Show. A couple of things to remind you of. The game locally tonight will be heard on radio on Mix 92.5 FM, and all season long, the home games will be replayed on television, KTES Channel 40, locally here in Abilene. For Brandon Tripp and for Chris Thomsen, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you next week.